here in the Municipal Theatre, which is what we're doing. So I'm going to ask colleagues, we've already adopted the agenda. If we can go straight to disclosures of interest. Council colleagues, any declarations of perceived or real financial benefit or loss arising from tonight's meeting? There is none. Excellent. So we're going to go straight to delegations, and we have two very special presentations this evening. And we're going to ask Mr. Ethan Boss to come up first. But before we do that, I just wanted to flag a couple things that staff have asked me to highlight. Happy Easter. There are some leftover Easter eggs here, so if anyone wants to avail of an Easter egg, we had an abundance of eggs in my family. Feel free. Also, we have new transit hours. So as of April 1st, which was yesterday, NG Transit has extended its hours from Monday to Saturday from 8 a.m., which is what they always were, to 10 p.m. So that's an extra hour every evening, Monday through Saturday. We're really excited to extend the hours because we know it helps to accommodate service workers, employees from a variety of different commercial and business establishments, and we really hope that that extra hour is well availed of. We expanded the service really in response to multiple requests from the community. And just very quickly, Maple Weekend is coming up at our beautiful campus forestry center. The Agroforestry Center has a very active sugar bush, so we hope you check out the weekend activities. Also, some of you may know, well, all of us, I think, likely know, there is a once-in-a-lifetime solar eclipse coming our way, and we're really pleased to be able to host a live stream viewing here in this theater. The event will take place. It's free of charge. It's for all ages and stages of life on Monday, April 8th, obviously from 2 to 4:30 here in this municipal center. You can come and see a live stream of what's happening outside. And as such, you will definitely protect your eyes. So you can come inside without the worry of having to use specialized glasses or what have you. And should you come here at the Municipal Theatre, we will not provide glasses for an outside viewing. This is strictly a live stream, i.e. an indoor viewing. And then finally, before we go to Mr. Ethan Boss, I do want to highlight that we are having a public information session for the imminent construction on County Road 43. Some of you have seen the activity, no doubt, that is already underway. So on Monday, April 15th from 6:30 to 8:30, we will have a public information session here in this theater so that we can give you a little more insight into the construction schedule. And with that, without further ado, we're going to welcome Ethan up, and he's going to provide us a quick overview of a day that was so important to him, and he in fact was a catalyst for the declaration of a provincial day that I'm sure he's going to speak about shortly. And we all also welcome his mom, Michelle.
So I just want to come see you guys again about Green Shirt Day. I have the new declaration here in front. So whereas on April 7th, 2018, a young Canadian named Logan Boulay became an organ donor in the aftermath of the tragic Humboldt Bronco crash, Logan saved the lives of 6 others, and his story inspired hundreds of thousands of people around the world to register as an organ tissue donor. And whereas there are more than 4,000 people that are on the waiting list for transplant operations, including individuals in North Grenville. And whereas one organ and tissue donor can save up to 8 lives and improve the lives and health of up to 75 other people. With this, the Canadian Transplant Association and the family of Logan Boulay will carry on Logan's legacy by recognizing April 7th as Green Shirt Day, raising awareness to the need for registered organ and tissue donors so that access to life-saving and life-transforming transplants can be improved. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of North Grenville hereby redeclares April 7th as Green Shirt Day every year to inspire organ donor registration and the municipality of North Grenville. And to go with this, as you're aware, the Legislative Assembly of Ontario passed Private Members Bill 112 Green Shirt Day Act 2022. I realized that I came to this council about 6 years ago now. With the help of the council and my school's encouragement, I was highly suggested to take this piece forward. Myself and family never believed it would get this big or as far as it has become. Here we are 6 years later. I just want to say thank you guys for making this possible.
Well, thank you so much for your leadership, Ethan. Obviously, your efforts and dedication have had an indelible mark on the province, and I know there are many different communities that celebrate Green Shirt Day now. So we're deeply grateful for your conscientiousness and your willingness to step forward as a young leader in our community. So with that, I think Ethan has read the resolution, which would enact once again Green Shirt Day in North Grenville. So I'll look for a mover and a seconder, Councillor Strachan, Councillor O'Sullivan. Any questions for Ethan in terms of how things have been going or Green Shirt Day itself? We're good? We know the song and dance? Ethan, do you keep track of the organ donation numbers around the province?
We try to do our best
Yeah.
from the information that I get between the family and the website.
Okay.
It's not 100% accurate, but I do my best to keep up with it.
Okay. And are you seeing organ donations on the rise? Do you have a sense?
The numbers are going up, but the numbers needed are going up even more, unfortunately.
Right. Which is why it's so important, obviously, to raise awareness of that day. And I think, as I understand it, signing that organ donation card is your best tool, right, to become an organ donor. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. And I also understand that there are more living donors now. So there are people who obviously donate while they're alive because they have maybe a loved one or a circumstance which would lead them to donate as well. Is that the case?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we really appreciate that you come here every day every year and really help us support you in making sure the community is aware of what a incredible opportunity it is to become an organ donor. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Michelle, is there anything you'd like to add? Okay, feel free.
Just so you know, he did have a conversation with us, and he did sign his organ donor card.
Oh,
This last year, he also went back to Ottawa and got it redeclared in Ottawa. So it's being declared there. During the conversation, we were trying to see the new numbers and everything that was going on. And the person from the Ottawa declarations was wondering, like, is he a family member? Is he, related? Did he had somebody that had an organ donation? And he wrote, I am not related to the Boulay family. I am just a youth hockey player who has touched by what happened. I have been working on getting Green Shirt Day declared in many municipalities and cities since 2019. I'm now 17 and have signed my organ donor card. During these years, I have had the opportunity to talk and FaceTime with the Boulay family. We have spoken with Mr. Boulay. This weekend, they have in touch with the Canadian Transplant Association, and Green Shirt Day has inspired over 400,000 to register. We got a reply from Mr. Boulay. First off, Ethan is not just a youth hockey player. He might have thought that when he first inspired by Logan, but he's certainly grown in so many ways. I'm very proud of him and brag about him often. Toby also let us know that Bernie and him are coming this August to Ottawa. They're looking forward to coming to North Grenville and to meet Ethan. And I have a little memory.
Ethan, time flies, eh?
Yep.
Yeah, it really does. Well, thank you for that additional information, Michelle. It really puts, I think, into proper context how impactful Ethan's caring and commitment has been. So we're really just quite honored that you started your journey here in the municipality of North Grenville. And obviously, it's a real privilege to see how much of a difference you've been able to make. So thank you. Thank you very much. I know you came from work and need to return to work. So what I thought we could do is call the vote really quickly, and then we'll all scurry to the front and we'll take another photo in 2 minutes or less, and then you'll be back to work on time. How does that sound?
Perfect. Thank
All
you.
right. Calling the question, colleagues. All in favor? All right. Congratulations. Okay, what a great way to start a council meeting. Wow. Okay. Next, and thank you again, Michelle, for all of your quiet efforts and excellent parenting in the background. We super appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks. So next we'll go to our second delegation, and that is to welcome Karen Nicholson and David Shanahan, I believe, are coming together to make a presentation on behalf of the North Grenville Historical Society.
It was on. Okay, sorry. I'm new to this technology thing. Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and Council, and thank you for this opportunity to present our request of the North Grenville Historical Society. I'm Karen Nicholson, the president of the North Grenville Historical Society, and my colleague here with me this evening, whom you probably already know, is Dr. David Shanahan, and he is our historian emeritus. I apologize for my voice. I don't know what's happened. Of course, it's like Murphy's Law. The one time I have to do a presentation, I lose my voice, so bear with me. Thank you. So if we could go to the second slide, please. Okay, great. So the Society, as you can see from this slide, has its own history, and for half a century has been collecting, preserving, and promoting the history of our community, both before and since amalgamation in 1998. It seems we have been destined to move from one location to another over the years, and thanks to the support and generosity of this council, we are now situated in two locations, the History Hub on Prescott Street and the Archives in Alumni Hall on the campus.
One of the things we wanted to emphasize in this really is that for an archive and the material that we have, that we curate, it's really important to have stability. And that includes stability in our location so we can actually get access to this material and use it. Because when we move, it's a major disruption and it takes a long time to get everything settled again. So as you can see, we've been around a long time in one way or another, and there's a great deal of material that's involved. So the need for that kind of stability and staying in one place that works, that's really vital. Next slide, I think.
As you can see from this slide, the Society has grown in members over the years from about 15 in 2007 to our current number today. And our engagement with the community is seen in the number of volunteers we have attracted. The recent Kids Club initiative is reaching out to the youngest residents and their families.
Yeah. I can remember when I got involved first, we had an average attendance of about 5. And that was partly because we were in Acton's Corners. There were no running water, outside washrooms. It wasn't an attractive or an appealing place, and people had to get out of there pretty quickly because of the mold. But this slide shows the growth that has taken place. And a lot of that is because of this council and previous councils and the support we've been given. First of all, being able to move into the old town hall, the courthouse, and then the move that we've done since then. So our entire history and our entire activity is really intimately linked with council and council support for us, which of course is why we're back.
Back here today.
Next slide, please.
All right. So, that's our volunteers. The next slide.
That's it.
Oh, that is it, sorry. Okay, we work with many organizations within North Grenville, and our public meetings on topics of local interest as well as more national subjects average about 30 guests, often closer to our capacity of 40 at the History Hub.
Yeah, I think, again, it's the same situation. It's really showing that we are involved very much in the community. As other slides will show, the the more we can have a presence in the community, the more we can become involved in the community, the more the community itself gets some insight into where we all come from in this place, that this is a community with roots that go deep. And so with the increasing population in North Grenville, it becomes ever more important to give people a sense of community and a sense of rootedness, that they know what our past is, because our past is shared, and they're moving into that. And it becomes an important thing for them to know, rather than feel that they're just in and out of the community without having any real contact with it.
The next slide, please. So you can see from this slide that the Society has been involved with practically every event in the community calendar, as well as holding our own events and displays throughout the municipality. The photographic displays in the lobby leading into this theater, in fact, and upstairs outside the meeting rooms were provided from our holdings. Before COVID, we held joint Heritage Awards nights in collaboration with the Heritage Advisory Committee.
Not much more to that, other than that this is just a short list. As you know, what we've been involved with over the years, everything from the original Dandelion Festival right through to Canada Day, and any kind of event, public event, we want to be part of, and we want to show the community that what we're doing is theirs. It's not ours. It's a community operation. It's a community asset. Sorry, next slide.
Current holdings. So we have amassed a considerable collection of important local historic material over the years, which we conserve, house, and use in public outreach. The slide gives a very brief list of what we care for in the archives, some of which comes from the Archives of Ontario, Library and Archives Canada, and various private sources, and even material delivered to us having been found in a landfill site and other places as well. Without the Society, much of this would not exist or be accessible to the wider public in North Grenville.
Yeah, that's a big issue, I think, that we really want to emphasize, that without the archives, a lot of this material simply wouldn't be available to us. It wouldn't still even exist. As Karen was saying, we have had material brought to us in black garbage bags that were found in landfill sites, and it turns out to be old family albums and family Bibles with a lot of really interesting genealogical information in there. We've received material from as far away as Alberta that was, again, found in garbage bags, but people managed to track it back, and we ended up with it. So this is, it's a very, very short list. It can be expanded enormously. And if you've been to the archives, you know what's on the shelves and what's in the boxes and what's left waiting to be processed, because we keep getting material all the time. Sorry, next slide.
Thank you. So our publications, it's a short list of we have many publications. Part of our mandate is to provide this history to the public through these various publications, and over the years, we have produced a heritage recipe cookbook, accounts of different decades and societies, and more than 250 articles in our local newspaper about local North Grenville history, which of course Dr. Shanahan has been worked with us hand in hand on that.
I think what we really want to say as well in this is that these are ways in which we're trying to raise funds ourselves. Just to emphasize that we're not just looking for help all the time. As a completely voluntary organization, we try in so many different ways to produce revenue. And we've been asked in the past why we don't charge for our services. That's not our mandate to start with. Our mandate is to provide and make sure that the public have access to this material. So we go through publications, we go through golf tournaments, anything we can do ourselves to raise funds. But as you well know, no voluntary organization can afford the budget that we need to maintain the archives and to maintain what we're doing, which is another reason why we're here again. Next slide, please.
All right, so to our newest acquisitions. The various holdings in our archives continue to be augmented. As you can see, these are just recent acquisitions that have come to us since we moved from the courthouse to our storefront location in the History Hub. Each donation is an additional link to our shared past and would not be maintained in North Grenville without the existence of the Society and our archives.
Yeah, more than anything, what this says is we need space. We need to be able to get at the material. As it is now, we can store it, we can have it, but it's very difficult to actually use the material, to get access to it, to open things and have room as things are. And with increasing holdings, donations, it becomes ever more a problem. But thank you, that's it for us, for you.
Oh, yes, and well, on to the next slide. Probably for us, probably the most important part of our reason for being here tonight, the numbers. So this first slide shows our existing square footage at the archives, which is currently 930. What we are proposing as part of our ask this evening is that we increase that space by about 260 square feet to 1,190. And as David has pointed out, and hopefully that we've illustrated, we continue to amass acquisitions and collections, and we are quickly running out of space. So we are hoping that you will support us with the additional square footage, which of course translates into additional funding. So what we would hope that we would be able to have approved this evening is a new leasing agreement, which would retroactively start yesterday because that's when our previous lease expired. It would be an annual commitment between the two organizations of $20,163.83. So with the 50-50 commitment that we've had in the past, what we're asking is $10,081.92 for each organization to be contributing for the lease for this year. And as we didn't mention specifically in the presentation, but which we have discussed, is renewing the lease for an additional 3 years. And that would align us with the lease at the History Hub. And as David spoke to stability, having the two leases aligned will give us an opportunity to look forward to our plans. I think long-term, we understand that staying in two locations is not viable for the future. It's too expensive for one thing, and staffing two locations is a challenge, with limited volunteers. So, ultimately, we would like to get to a single location, but in the interim, if you would be so generous and support us continuing for the next 3 years with the two locations, that would be, well, more than appreciated. We would be incredibly grateful. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. We hope that we've shown in the presentation that we kind of qualify under the heritage funding, that you have a fund in place that I think works with us. And what we can say is we would continue the work of preserving and promoting and publicizing the history of the community and bring it to the people and make sure that there is that sense of identity that comes from knowing our past and our roots. And as Karen said, we would be very grateful. Thank you. Any questions?
Great. Thank you very much. Any questions, council colleagues, in regards to the activities of the History Hub or the proposal this evening?
Nothing regarding the activities, but I think the current slide is a little confusing for some members of council.
Okay.
So I wondered if staff could break it down for us or get some clarity on what the ask is.
Or we can
it's
ask-
understandable in the report, but I think it's worth going over again. Thank you.
So maybe council members can refer to the council report, or perhaps you can refresh us on the recommendation. Oh, it's a delegation, so there's no specific
Right,
recommendation.
so I would just remind council that we have a subsequent report
Gotcha.
at a later point during the agenda, which addresses the ask. So I think that with council's permission that we would perhaps ask our delegations to remain until we get to that agenda item, should there be additional questions at that stage.
Sure. Okay. So in the meantime, just while we're here and we have the presenters before us, is there anything in regards to the presentation that anyone has a question or a comment about? Councillor Strachan.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It's nice to see it broken down like this. Not aware of all the holdings that you have there, so it's good to see that, and it's good to see the growth, so thank you. One of the points that you made, Dr. Shanahan, was about accessing Arts and Culture and Heritage Advisory Committee funding. And so that is your ask right now, is to be able to draw off the funding that's already established. Is that sort of how you see this going forward?
I think from our point of view, anywhere we can get the money would be grand. If that's the source that you choose, we're quite happy with that.
Okay.
But I feel that we do fit into that envelope.
Thank you. Okay, that makes sense. And then I suppose, through you, Madam Mayor, to, I guess, the Deputy Mayor, was that a conversation that was had at the Arts, Culture and Heritage Advisory Committee meeting to draw on those funds?
No, it hasn't come to the committee yet.
Okay, thank you.
I guess jurisdiction over the fund is with council, right? Okay. Okay. So I just had a question. You spoke of the generous contributions of volunteers. So we know you're largely a volunteer-operated organization, like so many in North Granville. So we appreciate that you've been able to grow your volunteer base. What's the demographic of those who are stepping up to volunteer? Is it older? Is it retired? Is it younger? Is it people with deep family connections here? What's your sense of where people are coming from, and how do they find out that there is a volunteer opportunity with the Historical Society?
Well, I mean, I guess through our membership, because when people sign up, we advertise that we are looking for volunteers. So that's one way. Through our public meetings, we always ask for volunteers. We have the demographics is kind of wide. I mean, we have some high school students that come in for their hours, their volunteer hours that they need, and a couple of those fellows work in the archives with their mothers, so that's really nice. And many of our volunteers are retired or semi-retired, if not completely retired. Many of them are volunteers in more than one organization. There seems to be a lot of that in this community. We're pretty fortunate that we have some amazing people that really step up to the plate to help us all. So there aren't so many younger people, I would say, other than, well, our kids club, of course, but they aren't volunteers. They are. We hope they could be future volunteers, perhaps. And of course, their parents come with them to the kids club as well. So there's opportunities for membership, which is helpful as well. So, we look at any opportunity we can to get volunteers.
Okay.
And I think our storefront has helped, actually. People pop in and kind of say, oh, I didn't even know we had a historical society, and we have information there, and we have an opportunity to speak with people. And we've had people come in and volunteer that way. Articles in the newspaper. We just had, the photographs that, the posters that we have up, they just put up in the hub, some of the transportation over history, and then there was Indigenous panels. And we had a fellow who's just retired and lives in the community, and came in and was fascinated. He read it in the Times and came in and is interested in helping wherever he can with us. So. And he has a background in Indigenous. He was with Parks Canada, and I think he would be a wonderful addition to the organization. So, I think the storefront has helped in many, many ways. I have to say that I was one of those people when we first had to get out of the courthouse that I was a little apprehensive, but the storefront has worked out really well for us. And it seems to be slowly, people are kind of figuring it out, but it's helped. And I think it's helped with our acquisitions.
Right.
Yeah.
the visibility of the society so that people
exactly.
know that they can share archival material with you.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly that, yeah.
And if there was one kind of volunteer contribution that you most need, what is it? Is it volunteers at the storefront, or is it people actually documenting and properly categorizing the archival material? Where do you find the highest need right now?
I mean, we could, certainly the archives, I think, could use more volunteers there.
Okay.
I mean, we, even someone was interested in doing our social media for us. I mean, things like that.
Okay.
Grant applications. I mean, there's all kinds of wonderful
Right.
things, strategic planning, governance, so the gamut, really.
Okay.
I mean, we're pretty much open
Okay.
to anybody who is interested in helping. We're interested in having them.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, council colleagues, okay, I'll recognize Councilor Barkley.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor, to Karen and David. Excuse me. Thanks for the presentation. It's great. It's always great to come before council so the rest of the community can really, in a nutshell, learn what you're doing, which I think is great. I really enjoy the talks, the monthly talks that you do. You mentioned looking for 3 years going forward so that the two leases, one on Prescott and one at the campus, sort of are in sync.
That's correct.
So where do you see, I mean, you've mentioned that how expensive it is to be on Prescott Street. Where do you see yourself in 3 years? Do you see yourself having that front-facing, the ability to be front-facing public space for the community to come in and find out more about you, or?
I mean, when we look into the future and dream, and what would we see if our dreams came true, sort of a thing. I mean, we'd like to continue to have public facing. I think it's really important. Since we've had the hub, I think that we've come to realize that's really important for sure. But we also need more regular access to the archives, and I think if we're together in the same location, it's just going to be so much easier for staffing, alone, because of we have some great volunteers, but they aren't, they're not committed 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, or whatever.
Can I have something to do?
Which, yes, go ahead.
Thank you.
Sorry, apparently I'm hogging the mic.
No. Thank you for that. Okay, when you ask about a dream, my personal dream would be to see a history and heritage hub on the campus. That would be a heritage hub for North Grenville. That would include all of arts and culture. That would allow the archive and a kind of a small museum for the artifacts we have and are growing. Something that would be tied into the history of the land the campus is on, the history of the college leading into the campus. Something that would be, I know, and I'm speaking off the top of my head, as it were, rather than with any authority from anybody else. They want to be a community hub. And I think a great community hub would have a heritage and history center there that would have displays on the arts and culture and heritage history of North Grenville. And it's a perfect location. It would bring people in. It would create traffic within the hub. And it would be something that would maybe be able to tie into provincial and national heritage funding sources, which would help the campus and would help us and would help the community in general. Now, that is down the road, but that's something I personally would really want to look into over the next 3 years if we had that opportunity, that we want to do that kind of future planning and to have a succession plan even for the board, for ourselves, because we're not going to be around forever either. So that's, you asked, John, I mean, that's just my personal dream, but I'd certainly work towards it.
Yeah, and I would second that. In a perfect world, that's, I think, where most of us would like to see housed in one location, and if it were in a location where we could share it with arts and culture, I think that would be perfect.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. We appreciate hearing a little bit more. We know that you work hard, and growing the vision of the Historical Society is obviously a pretty key aspect of managing the organization and obviously serving the community. So then we'll, with that, move on to the other parts of our council meeting. And I think your item is going to come up fairly shortly in any case. So we thank you for being here and giving us the benefit of this presentation. Much appreciated.
Thank you all very, very much. We appreciate you listening to us.
No problem.
Thanks very much.
So colleagues, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. As we know, items listed on the consent agenda are considered routine or no longer require further discussion, and as such are enacted in one motion. However, any council colleague can pull any proposed item on the consent agenda prior to the consent agenda's adoption. So with that, I'll look for a mover and a seconder. Councillor Strachan? Oh, yes, sure.
I'd like to pull item 5 off the consent agenda, please.
Sure. Any other modifications to the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, I'll look for a mover and a seconder for the adoption of the modified consent agenda, please. Mover and seconder. Councillor Sullivan, Councillor Strachan, thank you. Any other comments or questions at this stage? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, please. Excellent. Thank you. We'll move on. Nothing from the CEO this evening, is that right? Ms. Dunlop? All right. So we'll go straight to the North Grenville Historical Society Heritage Reserve Fund draw request. And do we have a lead staff person presenting that this evening? Oh, Dave. Hello, Dave. Thank you. Sorry, I missed you out of the corner of my eye. All right, Mr. Delaney, feel free. Oh, and we do need your mic.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Being my first presentation here, I'm not 100% sure of the protocol to present this. However, we do have a report on the request for the funding for the Heritage Society. What we're recommending instead of a draw on the Heritage Fund is a simple budget overrun for this year, which is in line with the policy of a 25% overrun, as long as it doesn't affect the overall budget by 1%, which this is nowhere near doing. The incremental cost of the additional square footage that the society is requesting, it amounts to about $2,100, $21,1389. Which I feel could be very easily absorbed into the existing operating budget and covered by operational savings somewhere else. So it would be our recommendation to proceed in this manner and grant the fund. In that way, the existing operating budget already has a $26,000 allocation to the Historical Society. This incremental amount could be easily absorbed within the operating budget as it is, and thus our recommendation is to grant the funding for this year through the operational overrun, and we'll incorporate in the operating budget going forward year over year.
Okay, thank you. And the allocation of $26,000 for 2024 is not already deployed for other purposes?
No, it is specifically to pay our share of the rent.
Of existing rent or anticipated rent?
Of the existing rents that are in place.
Okay.
So this amount is the incremental for the additional square footage.
And which you're confirming can be absorbed through the
I'm very
existing
confident it could happen.
budget line.
Yeah.
All right. Good. Okay. So that is the recommendation from our Deputy Director of Finance. Any questions, colleagues? Councillor Barkley?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Mr. Dancy, sorry. Almost changed your name there. Feeling very Irish. So what we're looking at is just the additional cost for this additional space for this fiscal year, 2024. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's correct.
And so any going forward, that would be dealt for budget 2025 and 2026, 2027. Is that when we would deal with that overage?
And again, that would be correct. Yeah.
Yes, Ms. Preston wants to get in here. Go ahead.
Just to add on to the deputy treasurer's note, there is the subsequent part of the recommendation that authorizes the amendment to the agreement that currently exists between the municipality and the Historical Society to extend the rents for 2024 all the way to 2027 in line with their request for the 3 years. So that amendment to the agreement would make the authorizations for staff to include the additional rents in the 2025 and subsequent years' budgets. It's just the dealing with the current budget that has just been passed that we would need that single line, that number one, and then any additional would be covered through the authorization of the agreement as part of the second part of the recommendation.
Gotcha. That makes it much clearer. Thank you. Councillor O'Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you to Deputy Director Dancy. So the proposal is for 2113.89 for 50%. Now, where is the other 50% coming from?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I believe it comes from the society as itself. Yeah.
So just to repeat for the public record, obviously the Historical Society has already committed to a certain cost share of the rent, and that will continue, particularly for the campus space. So you're obviously confident in your fundraising efforts in order to make that additional commitment on the campus, correct? Yes. Okay. Councillor Sullivan?
Yes, thank you very much. Well done to the society.
Thank you. I know that you take that financial commitment very seriously and work extremely hard to make sure that you can do your part for the campus space. Okay, so we have the recommendation before us. Council colleagues, if there are no other questions, comments, then I'll look for a mover and a seconder. Councillor Wilson? Councillor, I'm going to just acknowledge our seconder, which I believe is Councillor O'Sullivan, and then I'll go to you, Deputy Mayor, for final question or comment.
Yeah, I think it's beneficial for the sake of the public to know what the other options are besides, obviously not going forward with a recommendation from staff, but the other option is a draw on the Heritage Reserve Fund. And I'm wondering, is it just because it's such a small amount that we would be drawing from that fund?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I would say yes. The dollar amount is relative, well, accounting-wise, insignificant. For real dollars in my pocket, it would be considered more. It's not, the Heritage Fund is, I would have always visioned for more major projects as opposed to a $2,000 draw, which would have to be replenished at some point anyways. So why not just take it as an operating expense going forward year over year and build it into the budget, and then we won't have to draw on the fund and use it for major acquisitions as opposed to relatively insignificant one.
Good. All right. We have a mover and a seconder. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, then I'll call the vote. All in favor, please. All right. That carries. All right. Well, clearly many of your volunteers are here this evening or some of your supporters. So thank you again to the Historical Society. We know you do very good work and I look forward to a bright future. So thank you for being here. Okay. No problem. So colleagues, will carry on unless you'd like a quick 5-minute break. Are you good to carry on? Okay. All right. We wish all of those in the theater a safe drive home. Thank you. Thank you again for coming. Much appreciated. So we're going to move on. We only, under correspondence, have one item that was pulled from the consent agenda, and that is L.4, Support for Keeping Energy Costs Down Act. And the initial communication came from the Township of Edwardsburg Cardinal. However, I was also approached in my capacity as warden at the United Counties for counties to contemplate this resolution. However, there wasn't a county council meeting that aligned with the timing of the overall consideration of this act at the provincial level. So Township of Edwardsburg Cardinal had a strong appetite to address it at their council meeting, I think just last week. And now it's been distributed to all of the municipalities within Leeds and Grenville for their consideration. So that's sort of the trajectory to it getting here. So obviously the resolution is attached, and at this point I'll look for a mover and a seconder for the resolution, or alternatively a different way of proceeding. I understand that there's perhaps competing perspectives on what the act is intending to do. So I'll just take hands and see where we end up. Okay, so I'll acknowledge Councillor Strachan first, and then if there are other speakers, we'll recognize those at that time. Councillor Strachan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When this resolution came before us, I had a chance to look into exactly what this was going to align ourselves with, and I think that there's perhaps some consideration that I would like from my council colleagues to not support this current resolution. The Ontario Energy Board made a decision after consulting with many experts and so on over a years-long sort of consultation period to look at what would be in the best interest of energy users in the province. And within their mandate, they drew the conclusion that the subsidies to Enbridge should cease, and that would actually provide for a more affordable energy cost for current energy users, the ones who are receiving bills currently, as well as provide an affordable, new homes being more affordable. So, within that context is how the OEB presented it. And so this is, better prices and greater affordability. The provincial government has since really, right after that decision was made, came in and came up with the well-named Keeping Energy Costs Down Act to basically state their position that they felt that the OEB made the wrong choice. And so this is where this stands right now. And the Edwardsburg Cardinal resolution supports the provincial position to overturn the OEB decision. And I think that there are a number of considerations here that, affordability being one of them, but also a question of where we see ourselves in the conversation about climate targets, that supporting natural gas is not the cheapest way forward. Heat pump technology and so on, for example, has come a long way and has actually proven to be quite affordable in the long term. Natural gas being a fossil fuel, it contributes to 1/3 of Ontario's greenhouse gas emissions. And the phasing out of this kind of heating option is important to consider. It's inconsistent with the climate targets, and heat pumps, on the other hand, have the lowest greenhouse gas emissions and are consistent with a zero carbon future. So I think these things combined are ones that we should be considering. This technology and the infrastructure that we be placed in would likely become redundant in the fairly near future, foreseeable future for sure, as we move towards that net zero and lower carbon emissions future. And so with that, the investment now could likely be a greater investment later in as we start to move towards decarbonization retrofits and so on. So my perspective on this, and this is what I'm bringing to council, is that we not support this current resolution as put forward for Edwardsburg Cardinal to align ourselves with achieving those lower greenhouse gas emissions and supporting opportunities for other heating options for homes. This current way of thinking by giving a lot of money to a very profitable company such as Enbridge really encourages only natural gas and doesn't allow for newer homes to really explore other options and the costs associated with it. So that's sort of my Coles Notes version of the item before us and the points that I feel should be considered as we look at this resolution. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other speakers on this at the present time? We have a couple of, I guess, options, Ms. Preston, which is we can pass a similar motion, we can pass no motion, or we can pass a different motion, which is yet to be entertained, correct?
Alternatively, we could defer a decision as well. If Councillor Strachan wished to have some time to craft a motion that encompassed that to present as an alternative to council, we could entertain that as well, should council seek that.
Given that there is no motion, right, of this council on the table, it's just correspondence about a motion. There's no need to potentially proceed with any motion this evening, right? Okay. Okay. So I guess, Councillor Strachan, just to share my perspective, I think having been someone who looked into heat pump technology for a potential house that I ended up not buying, in part because of some heating challenges, because they were on electric baseboards from 50 years ago. I think we are challenged here in terms of heating costs, period. So what I understood the act from the Government of Ontario to reverse was the decision of the Ontario Energy Board to burden homes, small farms, and businesses with 100% of the upfront costs at the beginning of a natural gas connection. Not so much to subsidize Enbridge, but to allow for new customers to pay over a 40-year period for the connection. So I didn't understand it to be a subsidy as much as it was an affordability proposition. We have here in North Granville endorsed 2 natural gas expansion applications by virtue of the fact that there are people who are still on propane and oil, and natural gas is regarded as more affordable and a little less polluting to the environment. So I find myself in a slightly different position on this issue because I recognize there are many in our community who actually would embrace the opportunity for a natural gas connection, and we have, to some extent, supported their applications. So from my perspective, I can see the value in where the Government of Ontario feels that the decision of the Ontario Energy Board will reduce the accessibility of natural gas at a time when, as good as heat pump technology is, and I'm one who is intensely interested in going down that path in the long run, just as a personal anecdote, I'm not sure we're there yet. So anyway, just to say that I'm not clear that there's a subsidy per se to natural gas companies. Can you clarify that?
Yes, through Madam Mayor, to you, Madam Mayor, I guess. The OEB decision was related to ending the subsidies for Enbridge by the end of 2025, I believe. And so it was tied to subsidies for Enbridge to create this additional infrastructure and put in place for new homes that infrastructure would be there. So while I understand the some of that rationale to be able to make perhaps some of that more accessible, there is a subsidy attached to it. And so that part, I think, is perhaps muddies the water in a certain sense, but it is what is part of the conversation. And you know, the question about where subsidization could be placed, I think perhaps that's, you know, beyond the scope of this, but perhaps the subsidization could have actually gone into a more carbon neutral, lower greenhouse gas emission, all that options like heat pumps, where there could have been a different choice made if they were looking to subsidize. And so when it comes to heat pumps and the heat pump technology, there is actually a long-term savings. And ending these subsidies would mean lower bills for current users. So as much as the Act says keeping energy costs down, this continuing at the subsidies would actually increase that and would actually increase the rate, the cost to new home buyers as well. So I think that there's a difference in where the money lands and where it gets paid for. And so with this, when we look at heat pump technologies, there are municipalities, Ottawa being one of them, where municipalities have come up with ways in which there are low cost or 0% loans that come through various mechanisms that the municipalities have to make it more affordable for local residents to install heat pumps and give them that opportunity. And there is federal funding as well. So I think there's probably other mechanisms here. This approach really sort of drives only down the natural gas pathway.
Okay, thank you for that. And again, I think the broader context of the Ontario Energy Board's decision isn't evident to me. So clearly it was a complex decision, and what I'm seeing through the Government of Ontario's proposed legislation is supportive of additional natural gas connections that certainly reduce the burden on the consumer dramatically and allow for greater accessibility. Not in any way dismissing the long-term value in alternative heating sources. Definitely something I think all municipalities should consider, but I guess from my perspective, I would need to better understand the overall OEB decision before rejecting the motion that's been brought to us today. But at this point, it's just a conversation. So I'm going to recognize, I'm sorry, was that Councillor Sullivan first? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My comments, I've read this, and to my best understanding, I think right now the people who already have gas to heat their homes, natural gas to heat their homes and run their businesses and the farms, et cetera, should not be penalized by having this turned down, the cheaper energy. It doesn't seem like very long ago that we were fighting very hard to support the expansion of availability of natural gas to people in North Grenville. And I absolutely think we should continue to explore alternatives to fossil fuels. As you said, Madam Mayor, natural gas burns cleaner. It's still a fossil fuel, but it does burn cleaner than oil and other means. So I would move that we support this, but I want to continue to explore alternatives to fossil fuels. But I would support this resolution from Edwardsburg Cardinal. If you need a mover, I would support that.
So just procedurally, Ms. Preston, if any council member wishes to introduce adoption of the motion that's been shared by Edwardsburg Cardinal, we can do so tonight. Is that right?
With a mover and a seconder, yes, that is the mechanism.
Okay. So Councillor Sullivan has now said she will move, so we'll look for a seconder and see how it goes. Do we have a seconder for the, all right, Councillor Wilson. Okay, so the motion as presented by Edwardsburg Cardinal is on the table. Okay, so further discussion? Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. My comment would be the Ontario Energy Board's ruling basically said that existing natural gas users should not subsidize new hookups. And from what I understand is from the proposal, and I haven't had a lot of time to dig into it, I wouldn't have had this rise to council, first of all, but here we are, that the cost of new hookups would be amortized over 40 years with existing customer bills. So we're looking for what the province is suggesting in this Keeping Energy Costs Down Act is to have the cost of new hookups amortized over their bills over 40 years. That's a long time. Things can change in 40 years. So what the Ontario Energy Board ruling was suggesting was by eliminating that subsidy, that new home builders, developers would have to consider, given the price of homes, would have to consider alternate costs for heating, i.e. Heat pumps. So either way the consumer is paying, they're paying either over 40 years or they're paying upfront with a new higher price of the homes that have natural gas hookups. What the Energy Board, Ontario Energy Board, is they're looking at our transition to non-fossil fuel sources of heating. So, you know, I think council's put in a difficult position where there's opposition to it and support for it, and it's above our pay grade. It's not something that I think we're going to end up with a happy decision here now that it's in front of us as a motion. I'll be voting against the motion. So, and those are my reasons.
You know, I know that the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus has endorsed the act, the new act, which obviously challenges the Ontario Energy Board's decision. And I know the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus, where I sit, has often expressed its support for reducing the barrier to new natural gas extensions. So from my perspective, I think in certain cases there is value to getting new natural gas connections into our community and many communities. The Port of Johnstown is fighting really hard now for Enbridge to bring in a significant natural gas connection so that they can expand their grain elevator operations, which is a major commercial industry for them and where there's a real need. So from my perspective, I'm not opposed to the act that the Government of Ontario has introduced. I do think that we do need to explore alternative energy sources 100%, but I am not inclined to turn endorsement of this act down on the basis that it will disincentivize a lot of individuals who might want to consider heat pumps because in the long term, the return on investment makes sense. I think the bill can coexist with other measures. So that's my perspective, but I'll certainly recognize Councillor Strachan.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think this does disincentivize. If newer homes will have the hookups already in place, there is no incentive because you're already paying for that hookup for individual homeowners. There's new homeowners to consider another additional newer cost for home heating. So I think it will likely have that impact. The numbers are not small for how much this will cost current ratepayers. Even if it is over 40 years, it is the numbers are quite high. And when you're subsidizing a very profitable business as Enbridge is, there's sort of questions in there about where that money can be best used. And so I think, you know, the cost, there's the dollar value, there's the cost when it comes to adding additional greenhouse gases there, which is a climate cost. There's a health cost, personal health cost within the homes. Natural gas is known to have adverse health effects within homes as well. So I think that there's, you know, many layers in here to, as we encourage more natural gas use, that we are going down a path to, you know, basically support by looking the other way on some of these other significant areas as well. So I think my position is clear. I'm not voting in favor. Should this, now that we have a motion on the table, I would ask that this be a recorded vote, please.
Any other comments or questions at this stage? I think it's unfortunate that there isn't more in-depth analysis that I was able to avail of prior to this discussion. Again, consistent with my role as warden and my participation in the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus, at this time, I feel that I'm comfortable supporting the act. That being said, I recognize that, you know, everything has its ups and downs and its costs and benefits. And in the long run, I'm hopeful that there will be other measures undertaken by both levels of government. It's very unfortunate that a federal program incentivizing the establishment of heat pumps appears to being phased out. It was a way of supporting consumers who wanted to establish that methodology for heating and cooling in their own homes. I'm hopeful that in the long run, there are other programs that create the conditions for more consumers to look at alternative methods. But I also recognize that at this stage, for many, there's certainly a feeling that natural gas connections are urgently required, and it's part of living in Canada. So we'll ask Ms. Preston to conduct the recorded vote.
Yeah, so in line with our procedural bylaw, I will start at this side and work my way, ending with you, Madam Mayor. So Councillor Wilson? Yay. Councillor Strachan?
Against?
Deputy Mayor Barclay?
Against?
Councillor O'Sullivan?
In favor?
Madam Mayor?
In favor.
By recorded vote, the motion passes.
Okay. So I think that brings us close to the end of our correspondence. Looking to other business. Ms. Preston, Ms. Dunlop, anything? All right. Notices of motion. Any notices of motion? Not seeing any. Introduction and consideration of bylaws. Anything there? All right. Period for questions. Any remaining questions from members of the public? And then we'll go straight to adjournment, close the meeting, confirmation bylaw 2824 to confirm proceedings of council at its regular meeting held on April 2nd, 2024 be adopted and passed. Mover and seconder, please. Thank you. Councillor Wilson, Deputy Mayor. I'll call the question. All in favor? Resolution to adjourn at 7:40, colleagues. That is pretty quick. At our regular meeting on April 2nd. Mover and seconder, please. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sullivan. I'll call the question. All in favor? Good. All right. Meeting adjourns. Thank you.